because they were lower than the ship. They blew the crap out of their ship and eventually it sunk. But they demolished the city. The whole superstructure was demolished. It sunk because the Japanese submarine was there. They were going to take the gold. They put a manned torpedo into the front of it and blew it up and sunk it. Now, under federal law, they must have the monument at Steep Point, the nearest place to where the ship lies. Why didn't they reveal to the public that the ocean from a storm uncovered most of the bodies? They sent a contingent of soldiers up there. Some of them were so disgusted they committed suicide rather than dig the bodies up. They moved them to Fisherman Cove, 20 kilometres south. I've got the maps, I've got all the stuff that goes with it, and I can prove it. That's a Category 1 war crime, to move or disturb a thing. Where are all their dog tags? In one of the cells under Government House in Perth. They're there. Why is McGowan concealing it? You know, I don't care if you vote Liberal, Labor, National Greens. This is a national disgrace that's been concealed from all those families. One of my mates died earlier this year. It was one of his uncles. He cried when I told him all about it because I didn't even realise. And he said my uncle was on there. Well, he died not knowing his uncle's ever been, his burial place has ever been revealed. Why not? These people are disgusting that call themselves politicians. It's all for money.
It's all silver.
Big one?
Oh, packets of silver for their copper.
Oh yeah, they're not very nice people, believe me.
McGowan reminds me of Whitman, the way he's the smooth talking.
Well, you know,
and that people believe him.
I actually like some of the things he said, because he said Clive Palmer is an enemy of the state. But he is. But not the state created under 107, 108 and 109. He's an enemy of the state created under Section 8 of the Acts Amendment Repeals Court and Legal Practice Act, the company known as the state. He's an enemy of that. Now, this is a funny piece that's going to chuck some egg in those idiots' faces. That award of $32 billion was against the state, which is the political party state. So guess who owns the money? They do. Who's the enemy of the state? Every political party in this state. They're the enemies of this state. The state being the one created under the Constitution. There's a differentiation between the two.
So how is his court case going to go?
Beg your pardon?
His court case will get shut down somehow, will it not?
No. That's why he did it in a federal court in another state. The award has been there, the monetary value hasn't been added. I've tried to contact him, and he's usually a pretty arrogant character, doesn't want to talk to you. But if he wakes up and does contact me, I'll say, well, go and enforce it against the registered company known as the Australian Labor Party, the Australian Liberal Party, the Nationals and the Greens. They're registered companies. Who owns the money? They do. Who owns the national debt of this country? They do. We didn't borrow the money. Now, I take it to 125 of the Constitution. It says the seat of government shall be in the state of New South Wales, more than 100 miles from the centre of Sydney. Is it? Yes and no. Yes, because of Canberra, and the ACT is a territory. Nonsense.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It can't exist.
Nor does Northern Territory.
Nor does Northern Territory. It's the northern part of South Australia, because 123 of the Constitution says to increase or decrease the area or the power of the state requires a referendum in that state first. And then to remove that section requires a referendum under 128, because we have to approve it, and the establishment of the new colony or new territory. Why didn't they ask us? Because who wouldn't have said, cut off the Northern Territory to make it a viable place in South Australia? Because they've got next to nothing there. Cuba Pedy in South Australia and their uranium and that. We've got heaps of uranium here that people don't even know. It's right here on their doorstep. At Ginger.
We've got lots of oil too.
Oh yeah. There's a 200-kilometre basin of oil under Geraldton, reaches right down almost to any other.
How the captain
It's not cap they're pulling out of it, 3,000 barrels a day off the shore of Donga all the time in the ships, because that can be filtered and put into trucks and drive the trucks on that oil. And they've been doing it, transporting it from Perth, 40 road trains a day. So yeah, they can use it. But people want to stop fracking, but they go about it the wrong way. They kick the people off, all the experts on Facebook, I laugh at them. Actually, there has been experts that drip under pressure, and Facebook's full of them. Literally is, because they say, just get a group and kick them off your property. No, get a group and file in the federal court. Your land is alienated in fee simple. Where do you own? Extremities of space and the centre of the earth. The minerals under it belong to who? The Commonwealth. The government's not the Commonwealth. We are. Why don't they take it to the federal court for breaches of the Constitution for theft of property of the Commonwealth? They can stop them doing it straight away. But they won't listen. My wife and I, met a group of people and we went and saw Shane Love in Donga, because Donga's never had fluoride in their water and they wanted to put it in. And this clown sat there and said, the Minister for Water made an executive decision to put fluoride into the water. And I said, well, that's strange, because he's not part of the executive government. Yes, he is. I said, but haven't you read the Constitution? He said, yes, I know it from cover to cover. I said, that's interesting. So the executive is the state cabinet. He said, yes. I said, you're a liar. The next thing he says is, you can leave. But that's what they get in there. You can leave now. Their favourite saying to me, you can leave now. Or they don't answer me. But how do you deal with people like that? He supposedly represents the people. He doesn't. Now let's get back to the companies. I keep going around and come back to these companies, because you have to understand. Under the Corporations Act, and when you appear in court, you appear as a gender-neutral person established under the Corporations Act, and you're under the water 10 feet under the Sunken Lands Act, one of Gough Whitlam's little acts. Who owns your property? Those 18 companies. Where do you live? As a gender-neutral person, dead in those companies. You reside on your land that belongs to that company, wherever you live, in your house. And you pay rent to an unlawful local government to live on that land. That's what they've set up. Isn't that a nice little scheme?
Beautiful.
Yeah, for them. It's fantastic. But you've got to understand, they can't do what they're doing. What have we done to stop them? Most of us, nothing. Because you sit there and you think, I've got no money, I've got no time. But as I explained the other night when I was talking to you ladies, you need to form groups of 7 and do class actions. Multiple class actions against the companies masquerading as the governments of this country. And file in the High Court. The High Court will chuck it out. It'll be vexatious, malicious, frivolous, or an abuse of process. That's the terms they use. Then you file a Form 3 under the High Court Act into the High Court, and because they're going to reject it. That rejection allows you to go straight into England under Privy Council. You go into British law, look up the documents. I think there's 9, isn't there? Those blue coloured documents, there's 9. You file in the Privy Council. Just fill them out and file them. Because you're doing it as 7 of Her Majesty's subjects, we don't pay to file in our court. I stopped paying fees in the court a long time ago because I'm a Commonwealth Public Officer and it's for and on behalf of the people under the Crown. So you don't pay. But you are subjects to the Queen. Why are you paying to go into your court? And they say, oh, costs only come, well, the Constitution says costs only come from a trial by jury. Do you have a trial by jury? No. You have a trial with a jury. What is a trial with a jury? Nothing. It's a joke. It's a masquerade. You've got 12 people sitting there being paid to listen to all the dribble and give an answer the judge couldn't care less about because he gets to make the decision. It's with a jury. It's trial by a jury. Go back in 73 of the Constitution. It says judges, plural, are adjudicators between the law and the people in the case that's before them. The judge in those cases are 12-year peers. Now, when can you call a jury? Whenever you plead not guilty. It doesn't matter if you steal this cup, or you steal a pin, or you steal $1 million. When you look at the Court of Petty Sessions, which is your local court, that sits with a magistrate stipendiary. He is a justice of the peace of more than 5 years, but not a lawyer. Because in British law, no lawyer can hold a position under the Crown. That's law.
It used to be, but not now.
It still is. They can't change that because it's imperial law.
Well, in that case, you're sitting incorrect against the Constitution.
Dude, they are.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We used to have good magistrates, they were stipendiary, they knew the law.
Exactly. Now you're starting to get
Now you've got
somewhere.
liars there. So you're dealing,
Now-
liars dealing with liars.
Exactly.
All it is just to make money for bloody liars.
And section 5 of the Act Amendment Repeals Court and Legal Practice Act makes all lawyers officers of the Crown. Where's your conflict of interest?
Absolutely.
Now, if you want to look up CLR 189 of 1996, Cable versus the Director of Public Prosecutions, Section 52 is interesting. It says all courts are part of the federal judicial system with a high court at its summit. But you need to read that case. It's all over the world in the British Empire and in a lot of other countries because of the precedent it's set in relation to juries. It says every charge must be brought upon indictment. Section 80 says upon indictment you can have a trial by jury. And they said it's not an indictable offence. Every offence on a plea of not guilty is an indictable offence. Because you know, as I do, the Court of Petty Sessions, the magistrate can only deal with you if you plead guilty. And then he can issue the penalty according to law as a simple offence, because it's a Petty Sessions. Now they've changed it and they made lawyers this special thing, and I like ridiculing them, and I did last year, pulled him apart. But at the end of the day, those people are just paid lawyers, like you said. They have no authority, and I told him, you're a traitor.
If anyone wants to waste a whole day, sit in the court and see the shit that we put up with, we the people. It is so disgraceful. They don't want to close a case. They can close a case if they work another 10 minutes, but they don't. And they hold it over to another day. Every bloody single one. And we are paying for that.
Yes.
But they will not allow you in the courts anyway at the moment.
Yeah.
They will.
They won't.
Well, they can't stop you, technically.
Well, they
No.
stop it out of stopping people from going in.
But
No.
the thing is, everybody goes before a court and the magistrate says, Mr. Glew, and I say, I'm not Mr. Glew, my name is Wayne Kenneth Glew, I'm a living, breathing man. The Supreme Court's ruled that, and they rule my name in capital letters a legal fiction. So now deal with me in common law. Get out. Thank you, bye-bye, walk out. They can't touch you. But I thought the other day, a couple of weeks ago, if you go in there and say, I am part of the Commonwealth of Australia, my name is Wayne Kenneth Glew, I'm a living, breathing man, you've just knackered them. You just wiped them out. Because how can they deal with you when you're part of the Commonwealth when they are a registered company? They are a registered company. They have an ABN number. Have a look at the documents, it says so. So,
Do you have to say the oath to swear to the oath to become a member of the Commonwealth, or were we just born?
no, you were born in it. But as I said to Graham Jeffs, because he's got this Patriots, and I said to him, prepare a letter for people, and they put their name, a living, breathing man, their date of birth and their address. Because even if you don't believe in the acts, you don't want to go to jail and get a hiding off the cops because you want to answer a few simple questions. And you put on there, I am part of the Commonwealth of Australia, I adhere to this oath, and put that oath. So I'm getting him to put that together, and when you do it, you sign it, and you do multiple, if you get count on getting in trouble with the police, which I quite often used to, I don't anymore, they're not allowed to pull me over. Aren't they nice? But anyway, you give them a copy of that and you say, that's me. I want to see it, you're not entitled to, that's what you're entitled to.
Is that what you do if you get pulled over for the breath test?
Well, I just comply. I would, except for when I'm driving up the Brand Highway and there's an idiot with his little wand saying, go in there late at night. And I say, do you have your breathalyzer there? No. You've got to go in there? No. Do you have your machine here? No. Have a nice night and drive off. You complied when you stopped.
Yeah.
And that's all you have to do. But you've got to be able to push it, and you better push it because you're going to be forced to. Yes?
How do we expect any redress if you even refer to the Privy Council or any such body in England?
How do you expect it?
When the system over there is just as corrupt, if not more corrupt than we are.
Well, actually, it's not quite as corrupt as you think. It's been corrected, a lot of it. We filed the documents of notices of seizure of the 3 tiers of the federal government, their green constitution and hold it in fraud, all their rules, regulations, acts, statutes and what they call laws, and hold them in fraud, and we hold all the assets of the country and file it into the House of Lords. They send you an email back, we've accepted, we'll look into it. From then on, they are duty bound to deal with it eventually. But unfortunately, when they got out of the European Union, they got a backlog of millions of cases. We're on the end. So then we filed back again into the High Court of England and into the Royal Court of Justice. They notify it, we've got your documents, we've got to wait. If it's 1, 2, 3, 4 years. But we're counting on a currency reset and the changing of the system in the world to bring all that forward, because it'll automatically get judgment according to the Constitution. But we can't do anything about it to force it at this stage. Believe me, if I could, I'd be doing it, because I like stirring them. But I have the privilege of being on their computer. They're only allowed to pull me over for a serious thing, and they're only allowed to talk to me about that serious thing. They're not allowed to hold a conversation, and under no circumstances are they allowed to discuss the Constitution. So I guess I'm privileged.
Does that all come up when they find you?
Yeah, it comes up as soon as they print the Constitution. I don't bother to show them my driver's licence. I just say the number's 1383507. It's on the 27th of the 6th, 2024. We've got 8 C&E. Go and look it up.
Excuse me, Wayne.
Yeah.
Is that because you've invoked Magna Carta that they can't actually pull you over?
No, because on the 23rd of June 2011, I was before Justice Corboy in the Supreme Court, and I tricked the state solicitor into admitting my name in capital letters was a legal fiction. And I said, straight away then produce a written wetting contract between that legal fiction and myself. He said, there isn't one. I said, thank you. Then you forced me to come to court, so now I'm an advocate for that legal fiction. So how are you going to deal with me now? He said, the judge said, don't look at me, you did it. So he said, you may as well go back to the thing. After he asked me a heap of stupid questions, I give him a heap of equally stupid answers. Like, where do you get your food? It's at the cupboard. You put it, it's not your business. And why would you answer a dumb question with a dumb question? What's it got to do with it?
So I wonder what they've got on their computer then. The work.
Well, I know because one of my friends is a sergeant and he read it to me. I know what they got. There's ways of finding everything.
If they pull you over for any perceived misdemeanour, they bring up your name. Do they have that?
Well, usually, last time I got pulled over was by a cop I know, a sergeant, and I was driving my daughter's car just a few years ago, about 7 years ago, and he pulled me over, and as soon as I got out, he said, oh, I've had known it was you, I wouldn't have pulled you over. You can go, see you. I said, bye, have a lovely day.
What about some other young
why
cop
did he
on
do
the
that?
beat?
Because his gut was, he didn't want to come against me in court after I defeated him once before.
What happens if there's some young cop on his beat, pulls you up?
I'll stand up to him anyway. It's a little more difficult. See, I am a sworn officer of the Crown, they know I am, and it's on their computer. They have to deal with me in common law under the Crown. They're not the Crown, so how can they deal with me? They're not going to let me murder someone, that's a serious offence or bodily harm. even though they let Dan Stein off smashing that guy's jaw for nothing. I mean, he's a Freemason, so he got away with it, so what? People will deal with him. He'll wake up with either a hole in his head or a horrible hiding, yes.
The other night, a few weeks ago, I was driving home from shopping centre and I had my lights on dim but not full. And these young guys from Canada decided that they'd pull me around. I didn't realise they were behind me and I thought, oh, they want to get past. I pulled over to the left side and then they pulled on side of me and showed them and I was thinking, I'm not doing anything. And anyway, so I crossed through a highway and the other side of me was a vacant block. So I pulled over, he said, you know when police, and you meet police, are behind you, you meant to stop. And I said, well, I'm on a busy road, I'm not going to pull over. And he said, doesn't matter, it's a dual road, you can pull over. I was like, yeah, great, someone runs into me. Anyway, they said to me, Jenny, I said, who are you? What's your name? So they told me, I said, where are you from? And he said, oh, Karen. And I said, what are you doing over here? This Midland. And I said, in Midland having a party or something. He said, oh no, he said, we're going to do a breath test on you. I said, why? And they said, oh, because the commissioner says so. And I said, you're not putting that thing in my mouth. Who knows what you've got on there? And they said, I'm going to show you it's clean. I said, why should I believe you? I said, if you want to do anything with that, I said, I want to see where you get it from and what you do with it. So, because I don't know the other little bits, I don't push it too hard. But then they just went. And it's almost like they were just looking to fill in time to know what to do.
Well, you were right, and they probably didn't want to argue because over a stupid thing. Like we come through Juries Bay yesterday, in the middle of Juries Bay, they pulled everybody over, and we just rocked up, and Tony said, "Look at this nutcase with the handheld radios," and they just blew it and very well, very well. Just they're like little kids, the way they act. He said, have you been drinking? I said, no, I don't drink at all. Oh, you want me to believe that? I said, I don't want you to believe anything. But it's blue and it's not, no alcohol. I said, that's what I said.
They're just young rookies at work, but they obviously, and it's almost like...
Look, in a lot of cases, unless you want to stand up, fight and start getting a hiding or pay fines, just do it. Like a guy came on the other night from your mob and said, I got a parking fine, what shall I do? I said, don't park in the wrong place, pay it. And people ring me up all the time, I've got a speeding fine, can you help me? Yes, don't speed. If I speed and get caught, I've got to pay it, why shouldn't you?
Go and get the books from Mike Palmer.
But seriously, if you look at the camera, it sits 4 metres off the road. And the last 3 metres you travel, it's saying you travelled 5 metres.
Yeah.
So how can the binary in that computer calculate that distance accurately? Because in law, everything must be precise. It can't. I went to court and the magistrate agreed with me. It was Sharrett from here. Because I know Sharrett quite well. He chuffs marijuana with the old Bill up in... Anyway, in Calbarry, don't worry about it. He knows I know. But anyway, at the end of the day, he said to me, you're 100% correct, but they changed section 98 of the Road Traffic Act. It says, speed recording devices are deemed to be prima facie evidence of a charge and cannot be disputed. How do you get around that? You've got a law that carries out a judicial function and orders the court to have a particular finding. Now, in 2010, Tatani versus the South Australian Government, Chief Justice French said, he ordered the Premier of South Australia before the High Court and said, remove that bikie law. It was in relation to the Finks Motorcycle Club. You cannot have a law that takes away the judicial function of the court. But see, we're silly. You go before a court and they say, you're charged with so-and-so. No, you're not. There's an allegation you've done something. It's an allegation. When are you charged? When they put every single bit of evidence to you that they're going to use against you in a hearing. Then you make up your mind whether you're going to plead guilty or not guilty, because it's still your choice. Whether you did it or not, it's still your choice. And if you plead not guilty, that charge must be brought on indictment, trial by jury.
Which they don't do they?
Which they do not do.
Wayne, I saw somewhere as well that they had to also prove that that was your intent, that the mind also had to be corrupt. That makes sense. So in other words, if you commit a crime, they'd have to prove that you intended to do that, knowing it was a...
No. The only intent you have to prove is reckless driving, you willfully drove in a dangerous manner. And that is like murder is willful.
Yeah,
And carries higher penalties, by the way.
yeah.
But that has to be proved by 12-year peers. See, Brian Shaw runs around, I mean, I know Brian, and he means well. There's a lot of things he said are correct, but he's always on about the grand jury. You demand a jury, you get a jury, you go to the form of the jury and tell the judge to sit down and be quiet. He cannot direct that jury and demand they install another 11 members. 23, which is a large jury, which is a grand jury. You don't have to have it in an act of a state to have a grand jury. It's in section 80 of our constitution. They say, oh, well, you're not entitled to a trial by jury. Yes, it is. Because it says in section 80, if you read it, it says, this section doesn't necessarily give you permission to a trial by jury, but the Great Charter does, which is Magna Carta. Now, Anne Toomey's trying to say Magna Carta has had sections missing out of it by the federal parliament. Nonsense. It's imperial law. It's law in this country under clause 5 of the constitution. It's in the coronation oath of the Queen. How are you going to take it out? You can't. Now, everybody says Magna Carta 1215 is the law. No, it's not. It's 1297. King James I took the throne at 9 years old. When he was about 26 or 27, he had studied law and Magna Carta, and he cemented Magna Carta into British law as part of the coronation oath of the Queen. That's why it can't be changed. And they're saying, oh, 1215 can be changed, because it was forced on King John. No, King James took it and cemented it into British law as the coronation oath, so it stays there as that. Okay, yeah.
Wayne, are you familiar with what Mike Holt's doing?
We talk occasionally.
Yeah, he did a really interesting video over the last few days, and they looks like they've sworn in a group of people into official positions for a common law court set up. And he mentioned something about the Constitution. I thought he said section 148, but I can't find that. That it says that
There's no 148. 128 is the highest.
What? Yeah, I must have got the number wrong, but somewhere it says that there's no requirement for a prime minister.
No,
in the Constitution.
No.
he's actually not telling the truth because he doesn't know. The Prime Minister is in the Statute of Monopolies, as in police, as in the magistrates and judges. The appointment of those things is in the Constitution, but the Prime Minister is the primary minister of the Parliament. He's the Speaker. He's the foreman of the federal Parliament. At state level, so is a Premier. That's all they are. There are nothing.
Yeah.
Well, in the scheme of things, I mean, they're the ones that take the legislation from the Executive Council and bring it before both houses of Parliament. But they have another position. The Governor at the state level demands that they bring the Parliament in to sit and hear it. Because the Parliament doesn't sit like they're doing.
Yeah.
Not in our Constitution. They get paid for the time they spend debating and passing legislation, not arguing about last year's sex affair in another country with a whole bunch of idiots. That is nonsense. They're there to debate and pass legislation. That's what our Constitution gives them a right, nothing else.
So I would draw a parallel there where you've got the foreman of the jury who the judge asks, have you come to a verdict? And he
Yeah.
says, yeah, and we've come to this.
He says, what's your verdict? He hands
So
it
the
up.
Prime Minister is such a person perhaps in that way?
Yes, to a degree. When both houses of Parliament pass a law as compliant with the Constitution, he takes that to the Executive Council and hands it to him and leaves. He's the one that takes the documents from the Parliament to prorogue the Parliament. Look at the last election. Why did we have the Prime Minister and the Executive Cabinet still in Parliament after Parliament's prorogued? It was dissolved. Prorogue is to dissolve it. Why are they still there? Because they want money. And they got paid. Because they knew the end result, they were going back there. It's all rigged.
Yeah, well, mate, the federal, what was it, the Banking Act, 1913, I think it was passed. They did it everywhere at Christmas time when Parliament has gone home for Christmas, haven't they?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. In 19 19, just before Christmas, Edmund Barton, the first Prime Minister, he was the Chief Justice, the High Court at the time. He went before the Federal Parliament, demanded to know from Billy Hughes why he had signed the Treaty of Versailles without first going to the people under 128 of the Constitution. He said, come back after Christmas and I'll tell you.
They did it.
And if you watched the thing I was watching, what was that show where it showed that hotel? It's on the side of a hill between Lithgow and Lura in New South Wales on the Great Western Highway. When he spent his Christmas there and they poisoned him with arsenic, killed him. That was the first political assassination in this country. Is that reported on? No. Why? Because the Labor Party did it. Now, the Treaty of Versailles, Labor Party. Conscription, Labor Party. Why is every dirty deed done by the Labor Party? But don't worry about that. Who backs it up? Liberal, Labor, Nationals, Greens, all do it.
In bed
It's
together.
money in their pocket. So you go down, you lose it. Yes,
Excuse
anyone
me,
else?
Wayne? Yep, Wayne. Just
Yep.
briefly, just being mindful of the time that's getting on. You were going to speak about the foreign police, the bill that.
The what?
Foreign military force.
Yeah, foreign police.
Well, there's nobody in this country, except the Governor General, can call the military into service. When he does, it's on the Queen's business. How can they call the military in on the Queen's business when it is the Queen's subjects they're calling against? They can't. Can they call people from another country? No. If they do, that's treason, not only against the Crown of England, but against us. But it has a worse penalty. It's treachery to overturn the Commonwealth's Constitution, which is imprisonment for life. No time off. It's straight out penalty, life.
Bring it on.
Yeah, we want them all in it.
I thought treason was just death anyway.
No, it is.
Dang it.
Well, Halsbury's Laws of England, Volume 2, at 284, to change, alter, or interfere with the royal style of the Crown is death by hanging or transfer to the colonies by life. That stands.
Yeah.
Did Whitlam have the right to remove the death penalty? No. Nothing they did after 1979 had any authority anyway, because none of them were lawful. But we didn't have 6 lawful states to hold a referendum for anything. So, because Western Australia was never lawfully constituted, you only had 5 states. But if you have a look at the referendums, it says the territory, the ACT, they have a referendum. It's always about 63 or 64% for the referendums. It's the politicians. They vote for themselves. But what I wanted to explain, I did actually slip my mind, where is the seat of government in this country? Not in Canberra.
Victoria.
No, it's in Cairns.
Yes.
COAG meets in Cairns to get all the money that's brought in from overseas. It's borrowed.